Guys, welcome back to another video, and in this video we're going to be continuing on with our SwiftUI tutorial series, and in this particular tutorial we are going to be taking a look at how we can create stacks of views in a horizontal, vertical, and depth-based stack. Alright, so what are these kinds of stacks that we can use? Well, there are quite a few of them, so let's quickly list them. There is an H stack, which stands for horizontal stack, where all views contained within it are stacked horizontally from left to right. There is a V stack, which is a stack where all views that are contained within it are stacked vertically from top to bottom. And then there are lazy variants for H and V stack. The lazy versions of H stack and V stack, they do what's called lazily load their content, and that pretty much means that that if your content is off screen, like if it's not within the viewable area, it doesn't get loaded until it's needed. And that helps to save memory and stuff like that. So it's not having to render up to a bazillion views, even though you can't see them. And then finally, we have a Z stack. Now, the Z stack is special in that it doesn't stack views horizontally or vertically or anything like that. What it does is it stacks them on top of each other along the Z axis. So, for example, you could create an effect where it looks like you would have a circle with a stroked border, and then the circle's filled in with another color or something like that, but really it's two circles on top of each other. And that's why we often call it a depth stack, because all the views contained within that are stacked sort of like on top of each other on the Z-axis. All right, so let's go ahead and actually take a look at these in practice. In Xcode, inside of our body, we are going to create a V-stack of 3 circles. Each circle is going to be have a different foreground style. We're gonna use gradients for this. Now, you probably haven't seen a gradient before, and I know I haven't showed you this yet, but you might have seen it online somewhere. So let's go ahead and actually take a look at what we're working with here. All right. So inside of our body, we'll create a V stack. So V stack. Here, inside of, inside of the V stack, we'll create 3 circles. So circle, and then I'm gonna select it and paste. Okay, so Xcode is being uncooperative today. So V stack, like that. There we go. Now, let's say circle, like that. All right. Okay, there we go. Now, if we save this at the moment and we run it, you can see we get 3 circles here, all stacked on top of each other, but they're all white, right? They're not different colors like we wanted them to be, and they're not, smaller or anything like that. They all have like a default ideal width and height for its frame. but we're going to change that. So for the first circle, we'll say dot frame with a width of, let's say, 100 and a height of 100. So it should be significantly smaller. Then we'll say dot foreground style. And then in here, we'll put dot red. So if we save this now, all right, there we go. Now you'll see we have a smaller red circle up there at the top, and then beneath it we have the two larger white circles. So let's go ahead and change that. For the second circle, we'll say dot frame width of 100 and a height of 100. And then dot foreground style dot green. And we'll say dot frame width 100, height 100, dot foreground style dot blue. We can save that and run it. And there's our three circles. They're much smaller, but being stacked on top of each other vertically, we have a red circle, a green circle, and a blue circle. Now you can see there is some spacing in between each of these items in the stack, and that's because the V stack, H stack, lazy V stack, and lazy H stack all have like a default amount of padding in between all of their elements. You can change that. So how exactly do you change that then? Well, the VStack has a few initializers. The one we're using is where it just takes in content, and because the content is a closure, we were just able to not use parentheses at all. But let's say we want to get rid of any spacing in between elements in our stack for whatever reason. Well, we can do this by using the initializer that just includes spacing. And we'll say 0. Now, the spacing is a CG float, so just keep that in mind. But now that we've set the spacing parameter in the initializer to 0, if we run our code again, now each circle is right up next to each other with no spacing in between. If you wanted there to be more spacing, so let's say instead of 0, maybe you wanted 50 units of spacing. You can do that. And now each circle in our stack is a pretty good distance away from one another. There's also an alignment property. So for a vertical stack or a V stack, that will be a horizontal alignment to specify, do you want your V stack to be in the center of its containing view? Do you want it to be on the leading edge or the trailing edge, or where do you want it to be horizontally? And then for the H stack, that'll be a vertical alignment. So do you want it to be in the center, top, bottom, whatever, right? I'll let you experiment with that and play around with it, but we're not going to go that deep into the weeds here. All right, so that is the VStack. What happens then if we change this V to an H to make it an H stack? Let's save this and run it. Now you can see our circles are stacked horizontally. And from left to right, we have our red, green, and blue circles. The spacing works exactly the same as it does in the vertical stack. Just the views are stacked in a different orientation. All right. Now, let's say we want this to be a lazy VStack. If we run that, it does work, and now our circles are stacked on top of each other vertically again. But the lazy VStack doesn't do a whole lot in this scenario because we're not, for example, stacking thousands upon thousands or hundreds even of views on top of each other inside of the VStack. So it can't just say, oh, well, there's some stuff off screen, don't render it yet until we need it, until like it's scrolled into the viewport or whatever. So just know that that's how it works, and it displays things the exact same way a VStack would. It just, the way that it actually performs that task is slightly different. And the same thing goes for lazy HStack. You can see that things are still stacked horizontally and all that stuff, but we're not rendering stuff in such a high capacity that it would be off screen or anything like that. So the performance benefits don't really apply in this scenario. But again, just like with the VStack versus lazy VStack, the result is the same for an HStack and a lazy HStack. It's just how the actual task is performed of laying out the views and loading them is done slightly differently. All right. And the final thing that we're going to take a look at is the Z stack. All right, so we're going to get rid of lazy H stack, and we're going to replace it with Z stack. Now, when we do that, you're going to immediately get an error because a Z stack doesn't support spacing. So let's get rid of our spacing. And now we're good to go. So if we run this now, you can see it does work, except all we see is a blue circle. And that's because the thing at the bottom of the stack in code is what's shown on top, right? So the green is behind the blue circle, and then the red circle is behind the green circle. But we can't see them. So let's go ahead and change the frames of these views. So that way we can actually see the effect of a Z stack. All right, so for the red circle, we're going to make this... Well, let's start from the green circle, so that way we kind of have we have a better frame of reference. So for the width and the height, we're going to make it 200 more wide than the blue circle. So 300 by 300. And then for the red circle, 500 by 500. Like that. So save that, run it. And now you can see how the Z-stack actually works. So behind everything, we have a very big red circle. Then we have a smaller green circle. And then finally inside of that, we have our blue circle. All right. So that really is all for how a Z-stack actually works. And with that pretty much does it for this video. Thank you all so very much for watching. Make sure you leave a like on the video, and if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more videos, as well as ring that notification bell to get notified when I upload. And then you can also follow me on Twitter to get more stuff from me over there. So again, that pretty much does it. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.